Civ 6 has been out for almost 6 years now, and there is a wealth of knowledge that has been shared about this game since that time. From entertaining streamers to educational Let's Plays, there is no shortage of people who want you to get better at the game. I have released a multitude of these types of videos myself, and I believe it's time for another one. If you don't know who I am, I'm boes. I play Civ 6 on Deity versus the AI, on stream at twitch.tv/boesthius every Tuesday through Friday, and today, I'm going to be going over a few more quote-unquote advanced tips for Deity players. Some of these tips are very situational, and while they are not super necessary to use in your games, you may want to incorporate them, or at least keep them in the back of your mind if you're trying to squeeze out every single last turn in your Deity victories. Note, these tips are assuming that you're playing with the Gathering Storm expansion. If you are not, they may not 100% apply, although the tips still are valid and they will work. There just might be some slight tweaks to them. And before jumping right into the tips, if you do like these videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, that's all. Bye. All right, we're going to start off one that's a little bit cheeky here, and some may see as an exploit in the game, but it also just might be a mechanic working the way that it's intended. If you are playing a science game, you'll know that the way that the tech tree lays out at the end of the game can be very frustrating, especially when you're trying to find smart materials, since it's in a random spot in the future era. However, you can use the filters section of the tech tree to dissect where it is on the tree. This is probably actually a spot of the tech tree that a lot of people, I would say the majority of people, had no idea existed. Honestly, I didn't know it existed until sometime last year when I learned about this tip. But when you select the food filter, it will select and filter out seasteads in the future era, since that tech is the only one that has anything to do with food in that era. Then, upon filtering improvements, both predictive systems and seasteads will be selected, since those are both the only quote-unquote tile improvements in the future era. However, since we already know which one of those two is seasteads, we can assume that the other filtered tech is predictive systems. Finally, filtering out production gives us cybernetics, predictive systems, and smart materials. But since we also know where predictive systems is now from the previous two filters, we know that these other two techs must be either cybernetics or smart materials. The only caveat is that you don't know which of the two is cybernetics or smart materials, but filtering these out may save you a turn or two in the end game, or if you are trying to do a crazy sub 150 science run, you can just recycle tech trees until you get a good one using this trick. If this is too exploity for you, you can also just not do this. But for those speedrunners in Civ like myself, I always thought this was just an interesting little tidbit and tip into the game. For this second tip here, you will be able to lock in policy cards, use their benefits, and then swap them out for new ones even after locking them in during the exact same turn. Now what I mean by this is that if you enter into your turn finishing a civic, you will get the prompt to change your policy cards since you unlock new ones. Now once you place those cards, you lock them in and you aren't able to change them again until the next turn. However, by either completing a wonder that gives you an extra policy card slot or researching a civic that gives you a new government, you can change your policy cards again and run brand new ones. Now this isn't always possible, but you can get it to work, and when you can, it's a very niche strategy of utilizing the benefits of different policy cards in the same turn. For example, maybe you have a few settlers ready to settle some brand new cities, but before that, you want to plug serfdom in so that those new builders that you get from having Ancestral Hall give the extra charges to those builders since you just finished researching a civic this turn. But maybe you also want to chop Colosseum out this turn since you're running Corvée. On top of this, you have Divine Right almost all the way researched, but it's not boosted. Now in this small example, you go into this turn finishing a civic, you swap in serfdom, you lock in your policy cards, you settle those cities, and now since you know that it takes 2 temples to finish the monarchy boost, you buy a temple and a second city, you unlock Divine Right, you take monarchy, and then bam, now you can see you can switch policy cards around, so you can take out serfdom, throw Corvée back in, and then chop out Colosseum all in the same turn. Now, this is a very niche strategy, it's a very unique tip, and this example is a very rare one that doesn't occur very often. But that is kind of the whole point of this video, and it's small tips like these that give you those slight edges to make your Deity victories a little bit faster. This is probably the strongest and most advanced tip in this video, and it's a tip to make those last 20 turns or so of the science victory a little bit faster and a little bit more bearable. Now in the end of the science victory runs, I try to have enough science per turn so that I can finish the feature era techs and information era techs in about 1 to 2 turns each, hopefully one turning them at the end of the game. Now, in order to do this, you'll need around 2,200 science per turn on standard speed. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. Some of the techs vary at that era. And a way to get around this and to speed through these techs is to build cities specifically to sell them later on in this game. Now, what you'll need to do to set this up is a few things. You'll need to build cities that you don't necessarily care about. You'll have to have some light cavalry units with the depredation promotion as well as the +1 extra promotion. This allows you to pillage with only using 1 movement point. You'll have to have the total war card in, which gives you plus 50% yields to pillaging. And then you need to have AIs that you don't care about going to war with at the end of the game. Now, starting off, you'll want to make sure that these cities have fully built campuses with research labs established in them. It's even better if they're alongside the fully built campus and industrial zone, since pillaging an industrial zone also gives you science. Now, once this is fully set up and you're ready to skip ahead a bunch of techs, you'll sell those cities that you want to pillage to an AI, then you declare war on that AI. Making sure that your techs are all queued up and lined up, you'll start pillaging the campuses with all of your promoted light cavalry. You'll notice that you're able to fully pillage the campus all the way down in 1 turn with a promoted light cavalry. And this is so highly useful and insanely useful in specifically Babylon science games, as the end part of the tech tree is always the worst to slog through. Depending on how much science per turn you have and how many techs are already boosted, and how many campuses and cities you can pillage, it is a very realistic scenario to go through the entire information era and future techs within a few turns, especially since you're wanting to research 1 tech per turn anyways. Now, some of them take a little bit longer. For example, there are some techs that take like 7 pillages and some only that take 3. But you can see why this is the most advanced tip in this series, because it takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of forethought and thinking ahead in order to utilize it. And not many people, sometimes even including myself, are wanting to sit around and micromanage pillaging, selling cities, recapturing, repairing them again, selling them again, pillaging, going through that throughout the end stages of the game when you just kind of want to shift enter until you win. But if you do want to get those absurdly fast science victories, such as the Sir Dux Lancelot, turn 119 victories, things along those lines, this is one tool you'll absolutely need to utilize and master in order to get those. Now, how many times has this happened to you? You're chopping out a wonder, you see it only has 4 to 5 turns left to finish, and instead of chopping out the last woods tile in your city, you kind of sit there and you go, it's not going to get finished by another civ, I've got time. And then you have 1 turn left on it, and you see this damn little red icon pop up on the side of the screen, and you just start slamming your keyboard. Sorry. If you have some units nearby their wonder, and you aren't friends with them, and you don't really care about them, you can actually stop it from building and completely stop them from building the wonder for the rest of the game. This is a simple little trick. If you take a unit of yours, declare war on the AI, stand that unit on the wonder that's being built for a few turns, they will actually rarely go back to working construction of that wonder ever again. Now, this isn't all of the time. I've tested this quite a bit, where they started working on it around 4 or 5 turns after I declared peace. But around, I'd say like 7 times out of 10, they stopped working on it and then never worked on it again. I did a dual map, tested this out, where I stopped the AI from working at Temenonki by doing this trick, and then made peace, and I just shift entered for like 200 turns, and they never finished the wonder. Now, this is super useful in the early game if you're trying to go for those super impossible wonders, as I had mentioned, like a Temenonki, pyramids, hanging gardens. So if you find the civ currently building the wonder that you want, just declare war, stand a unit on the wonder for a few turns, and they shouldn't restart the construction. Now, if you want to be super safe, just keep it there the entire time until you finish building it yourself. This one is funny because you would think with thousands of hours into Civilization 6, I would have already noticed this, but I didn't. That's why I'm the #1 Civ 6 himbo. I actually didn't realize this literally until like 2 weeks ago on stream, and I tested it out. When you place Amani into a city state, her ability that gives +2 envoys do not count towards the mechanic of the policy card Diplo League. Now, Diplo League states that the first envoy sent to a city state by your empire counts as 2 envoys. Now, you'll notice here that I have the policy card in and Amani fully established into the city state, but that city state only gains the 2 envoys from her mechanic, not giving her 3. That means you can gain an additional 2 envoys to that city-state by sending 1 with Diplo League plugged in. Now, I'm sure the way that this works is that, I don't know how the back-end programming is coded, but Amani's envoys probably aren't coded as like real envoys, they're temporary. And so that doesn't trigger the Diplo League part of the card. Regardless, if you've noticed that you throw an Amani and you have Diplo League in and it's not triggering it, that's why. Now this one isn't a super crazy useful tip, but if you are playing with the Barbarian Clans mode as well as Secret Societies, and you take Sanguine Pact, and you do end up taking Vampires, if you buy a unit from a Barb clan, and that unit is the strongest melee unit in your army, that does not count towards the base combat strength for Vampires. Now if you're unaware, the Vampire unit's base combat strength is always equal to your strongest melee unit, and that upgrades over time. That's why sometimes you see Vampires hitting harder than GDRs at the end of the game. However, if you buy a unit from a Barb clan that ends up becoming your strongest one, so for example, say you only have Warriors, but a Swordsman is available to buy from a Barb camp, you buy it, the Vampire's base combat strength does not increase. This isn't like a huge tip, but it's also something that you may notice sometimes. Maybe you're trying to do a timing attack with the Vampires, and you're like, oh, I'm going to buy that Man-at-Arms, and then I'm going to have a Vampire that's super strong. But you buy the Man-at-Arms, and its base combat strength doesn't go up. This is the reason why. I'm sure this is just another back-end coding thing where maybe Barbarian Clan units that are bought are treated as temporary even though they are fully yours. I don't know, but that's something that you may notice. And finally, the last tip here is more of an exploit than just a small tip. But if you're wanting to gain every little edge that you can over the AI, this is the one. This is the strategic resource trading exploit. This trick allows you to gain an insane amount of gold from the AI early on in the game and bankrupts them super hard, giving you an insane gold advantage over the AI and slingshotting you super hard into the Deity Snowball. Now, in order to do this, you will need 40 of a strategic resource on standard speed. The easiest for this is generally horses. And then you'll want to sell this to the AI. Now, in this example, Harold wants to buy my horses for 12 gold per turn, so I sell them to him. Immediately, in the same turn, I go back and buy those same 40 horses for less than what I sold to him before. I go back, sell those 40 horses that I just bought back to him for 12 gold per turn, and then I buy them back for less again, and then I go back and forth over and over and over, buying and selling, until the horses basically equal each other. This will cause you to double, triple, sometimes even quadruple your gold per turn just from trading the same 40 horses back and forth with the AI, and you can do it multiple times with multiple AI. The reason for this is there's something in the AI's programming that overvalues a quote-unquote full stock of strategic resources, which is 40 on standard speed, which is why they want to buy them for a lot of gold. But when they have a full stock of them in their inventory, they value them for a lot less and are willing to depart for them for way less than what you sold them to. You can exploit this so hard, and it's something that I would actually describe as a little game-breaking. So I can understand why a lot of people don't want to do this. And I, like 90% of the time, don't do this because you can break Deity anyways. The only time I really do is if I'm doing a curated speed run, you know, if I'm trying to do like a sub 120 Babylon run. So if you just don't want this to affect your games, you can just not do it. Just like the previous Mahavihara exploit, it's in the game, but you can also just not do it. This is, as I stated, probably the most broken thing in Civilization 6. It's an actual exploit that still exists and more than likely will never get fixed. So there you go. The strategic resource exploit. Well, there's another 7 tips for you that will hopefully allow you to edge a few turns off of your Civilization 6 games. And maybe it'll help you eclipse that often sought after sub 200 turn victory on Deity. Anytime I'm trying to do those absurdly fast science wins, I always utilize the selling of cities and pillaging them because pillaging is just so damn strong. Now, not all of these you'll be able to use. For example, the double policy card thing is a pretty niche one, and some don't apply to every victory condition. But I do hope that these tips will be able to help you in your future games. If you haven't seen them before, I have a few other tips videos, so if you'd like to, go watch them here. All of these tips combined together are what I utilize in all of my Deity games and allow me to win Deity basically every single time. Now, if you have some other tips that maybe I haven't talked about in previous videos, or you just like to share with the Civ community, please leave them down in the comments below and maybe I'll make another video out of it. Other than that, this was a pretty quick video. Compared to my last tips video, which I think was 50 minutes long, this one's a little shorter. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. We get to see big number go burr, and I just do really appreciate all of your support. But with that, I just want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye! Bye-bye!